Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. Let's talk about the fourth episode of The Flash, Season 8, which was called Armageddon Part 4. It's the penultimate episode of the 5-part Armageddon story. When it starts, we again see the pre-wedding party from last episode, and apparently Ryan and Sophie are married in 2031, and Ryan wants a baby, which is interesting because that relationship hasn't gone really anywhere so far, but apparently 10 years later they're married. So, okay, we'll have to see what effect that has on Batwoman, if any, because it is an alternate timeline after all. So anyway, also it seems that in 2031, Barry is recorded as having been the one that killed Joe, as well as having killed Cisco, Ray, and Sarah. And he is apparently Reverse Flash in an extremely awesome comics accurate suit, which I was very pleased to see. He and Thawne, who is now the Flash, have a fight as Batwoman, Allegra, Alex, and the rest of Team Flash join in. Barry ends up confronting Thawne alone at the end of all this, and it turns out that all of this is happening because Thawne went back and changed everything, creating a reverse Flashpoint, which includes killing Barry as a baby, which is going to cause Barry to wink out very soon, at which point Thawne's new timeline will solidify. And apparently there are only mere hours before this is going to happen. So this whole scenario has echoes of the comics. As I talked about before, I think in the comics, Thawne was very jealous of Barry. He started out as an admirer of Barry's, but then became very jealous and went a little crazy. And if I'm remembering correctly, wanted to replace Barry to the point of wanting to be with Iris, which he ends up not being able to do. So he kills her in the comics. So this was all very reminiscent of themes and events that happened in the comics, which I thought was very cool. Barry then pretends to be evil, and he goes and seeks the help of Damien Darhk as Reverse Flash. And they then break into Star Labs to steal some tech. And when Barry refuses to kill members of Team Flash that are present, Darhk figures out that he's not evil, but agrees to keep helping him to save his daughter, who is alive in the correct timeline, as opposed to dead in this one. And I thought it was very cool that he did that. And he did it once before, too, in the original timeline. He sacrificed himself to save his daughter, which is why she's alive in the original timeline. So I thought it was a very cool aspect of his character. Anyway, Ryan reveals to Iris that she and Sophie are going to adopt when Iris confides in her that she can't quite remember the details of her relationship with Eobard when she's trying to write her vows. Barry explains to Damien that it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to open a time portal to the past, which he needs to do, because he'd have to reach Mach 20, which he can't do because there isn't a long enough straightaway for him to get up to that speed, unless he runs around the globe, which at that speed would create cataclysms all over the place, just like Despero predicted, which is interesting because both in the comics and the show, the cosmic treadmill exists and would perfectly serve the purpose of allowing him to get up to Mach 20 and go back in time, just like it did in the comics. So, like, I don't know what was going on there, why they didn't think of that. Who knows? But Damien tells Barry he absolutely can pull it off without destroying the world because of the power of his love in a really moving and well done scene. I think, I'm someone who likes a redemption story. I'm someone who believes that even villains are usually good people underneath and that they can rise to the occasion and be good people. And that's what we see Damien Darhk doing here. And I thought it was really cool and well acted. Before Barry goes on this run, he visits Iris to tell her about it. And it causes Iris to see that he's winking out of existence. But Thawne shows up and tells Iris to shoot him with a paralyzing gun. But when Barry says he loves her, she kind of wakes up and snaps out of this false timeline thing, and she shoots Thawne instead, which was really cool. As Barry starts his run, the world literally starts coming apart, and Dark is confronted by Frost and Chilblain, who are immune to his magic thanks to Constantine, which is interesting that they mention him. He gets the best of them anyway, but Alex and Ryan Choi as the Atom subdue him. So that was cool. Ryan Choi in the comics is another version of the Atom, and in this depiction, he's wearing the blue and red outfit from the comics and the animated shows that the Atom has been in, which is very cool. Barry is able to get up to speed despite Thawne trying to stop him, and he restores the timeline before explaining to Despero that it was Thawne chasing him that caused the destruction that Despero had seen, which causes Despero to beg off back to 2031. Barry reunites with Iris, and in a very cool emotional moment, talks briefly on the phone with Joe, whom we still don't see, but he's going to be in episode 5 apparently. So all's well that ends well, and apparently Despero is out of the picture. So I'm not really sure what episode 5 is going to be about. I guess Barry still has to battle with Thawne. We'll see. That's coming up. I think this was the best episode of The Flash in years, like years, which is sad to say. And the only other thing I would say is that it bothered the crap out of me that so much of the episode was spent with both Thawne and Barry not wearing their masks. This is a thing now in superhero movies and superhero shows where they show the hero in the suit but not wearing the mask. We did get to see them in their masks in this episode, but it was only briefly. They spent the rest of the episode in the suit without the mask. So Barry doesn't have the mask on when he's talking to Damian. He doesn't have the mask on in several scenes. Doesn't have the mask on when he's talking to Thawne in a couple of scenes, or at least one scene. He doesn't have it on when he's talking to Iris. And then he doesn't have it on in the end when he shows up back in his regular suit. You know, I get it. They're actors. They want their face on the screen. They may even have a need to be able to take the mask off so that they're not uncomfortable for long periods of time. And maybe it's something that the directors want because so you can see their face, so they're emoting. But it's too much. They're spending way too much time not wearing the masks. It's stupid. So they need to stop that. They need to stop having these episodes where there are long stretches of them in the suit without the mask on. It's just ridiculous. So I don't know. I hope they fix that. Anyway, Part 5 is next week. I'll be back with a review of that episode once it airs. Until then, I wish you peace and long life.